Night Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hey everyone, welcome to Night Vision once again. If this is your first time here, so happy to have you. Hope you come back again to see us. We're here every week at the same time. Also, the archives are available at kgradb.com if you don't manage to get to see us on live. I've got a great show planned for tonight. I'm really excited about it, truly. So I want to get to it right away. But before I do that, I did want to give a couple of shout outs to a couple of special listeners and watchers tonight. I wanted to say hi to my favorite Rennie, Kyle James Boney. Now, if you're a Rennie, you know what it is. And if you don't know what it is, then I guess you're not one. But a Rennie is a person who is really ensconced in the studies of the sort of Da Vinci Code-esque material surrounding the tiny hilltop village of Rennes-le-Château, France. Also wanted to say hi to Colleen and Chris, who I know are especially watching with interest tonight, and also to all those out there who have experienced something that was hard to explain and maybe looking for a place to get some answers, because we're hoping to give you some of those tonight and at least give you some comfort in letting you know that you are among a very, very large group. And with that, I'll introduce my guest tonight. He's filmmaker and experiencer, John Yost. Hi, John.
Hello, Renee. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I appreciate you and your audience.
Oh, thank you for coming. You know, as you know, I watched your film last night and I was really, really blown away. It's a beautiful film. You know, the story is amazing, and all the things that you can learn from it are really great. But it's also just a treat to watch. It's a treat for the eyes. And, you know, most people in my audience know my background is in television production, and I can't help myself but look at every little detail about, oh, that shot, oh, they got that angle, oh my gosh, you know. And I was doing that all during the film. So thank you so much for producing and directing that wonderful piece. And it's sort of a gift to everyone out there, those who are experiencers and those who, you know, maybe trying to understand someone who's talking about having an experience.
Well, thank you again for all that. I consider all that high praise. Thank you, Renee.
Oh, well, you're so welcome. I was really impressed.
Yeah,
Have to say.
Well, you know, I mean, there are a lot of documentaries about abduction and aliens and UFOs out there, and they're usually made by really, really smart people who are a lot smarter than me. But in general, they're probably made by, you know, researchers who haven't had experiences, or they've had experiences because of their research. And my film is, as you know, is kind of an immersion. You know, from the very first frame, you're with me, and you're either, you know, on my shoulder or in my pocket, and you're living this experience with me. So you go through all of the fear and the anguish that I had. And really what we try to do in the film is shepherd people from ignorance and fear to some sense of understanding. Making the film gave me a sense of peace, and I hope that is conveyed to the audience.
I think it is. I think it is. I bet it was rather cathartic in a way for you to sort of like get that information out there.
Sure. My, you know, it's a total accident that I made this film. I had an experience when I was a little boy at 7, and I lied about it my entire life. I had been told to lie about it by my parents, believe it or not. and that was very difficult. Being a little boy, you don't understand the import of what's going on, and so making this film was kind of an accident. I'm also in television and film, and and production, and the kind of work that you'd see me do would be stuff that you might find on Food Network or History Channel or that sort of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I was living the life, a regular guy, middle America, and I was on a shoot, and this is not in the film, so you might find this interesting. I was on a shoot in a place called Borrego Springs, California. And this is a very flat and arid, kind of desert-like place. And we were on a night shoot, and we had come back to this big ranch house that we had rented. And so my team and I were inside the house, and we're making sure we have copies of everything. We don't want to lose any footage on the flights home, right? And the rest of the people, about 15 so people, were outside by the pool. And I went out there to have a nightcap with everybody. And so they pour a little in my glass. I raise my glass. I see this glint of light in the glass, and your mind tries to justify what you're seeing. And I said, oh well, that must be the moon. And I went, wait a minute, I picked tonight because it was the new moon. We wanted to control the light. There was no moon out. So as I drop this glass, I see this thing above the ranch house that we had rented. And it was pretty close. I mean, it was about 30 feet away. I could have hit it with a baseball.
Mm.
And it was blue and green and had a kind of a self luminosity. And my mind once again is trying to, hey, what the hell is this thing? And I'm looking, and I thought, oh, this is a Mylar balloon, like a get well balloon or a happy birthday balloon. And, then my mind said, wait a second, it's as big as a Volkswagen. That's not a balloon. And just then I grabbed one of my camera guys who was standing beside me, and I said, look, and he said, oh my. And as he did, I told you there were like 15, 17 people with us. You heard these people look over and they say, oh my God, what is that? A UFO? What is this? And there was a shock and awe amongst everybody. And this thing, Renee, moves so damn fast, like a blink of the eye, in this zigzag kind of move, and it stopped right above my head. And at that moment, I don't know how long it was, but I felt a feeling that I hadn't felt for 45 plus years. I felt like the world was dropping out from underneath me. I've explained it like if you stand on a beach and the water rolls up over your ankles and it starts to go back out to sea, it starts to pull the sand out from underneath you and you feel like you're falling. Well, during my encounter as a 7-year-old boy, I had felt that feeling. And I hadn't felt that since then. Well, I was shocked and I was petrified. This thing zips away from me about 20 feet away. Everybody is still talking about it, buzzing about it. It stays there, and then it just drifts off into the desert. And like I said, everything's flat there, so you could see it, right? And we watched it for over a minute, minute and a half, and everybody is kind of buzzing about it and kind of jazzed about it. But inside my gut, I was dying. It was like, have you ever been so cold that you can't get warm? Like if you're ill and you just shake inside. I couldn't control it.
Mm.
Now, you know people in production. If you're a line producer, you're a producer, you got to have kind of nerves of steel, and you have to be anal retentive because
Oh God, yeah.
you're spending money. You got to be careful.
I could never do that.
Oh, well, I was in charge,
Oh my God.
and I am losing my mind. So I make some stupid excuse. I say, "Oh, you bunch of young whippersnappers can stay out here and drink. I got paperwork. I got to go back to the." I got back to the room that was mine, and I'm not proud of this, but I barricaded that door. I pushed the bed up against it and put all my luggage there, and I sat in a corner and I cried my eyes out. I'm a grown man. I have to tell you something, Renee. You don't know me, but I'm about 6'3" and about 270 pounds. I am not a person who's afraid in general of people or anything. People usually leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was so afraid. I was so petrified. I could hardly sleep, whatever. And I was so pissed off at myself because I could not stop this. So I took a really hot shower the next day, right? I'm going to get out there. I'm going to hit it hard. And I walk outside with coffee and I can't go outside. I have immediate fear of big sky and immediate fear of big water. I can't get near the pool. I can't go outside. And so this is really hard. I have to go scout locations, right? So I
Yeah.
can't go alone. This is a problem. Anyway, I get through the shoot, but my guys, my whole team is noticing there's an issue, right? And I get back to the East Coast with the help of some very fine Irish whiskey. Uh, and but when I get off the plane, people here knew there was something wrong. There was something different. It got so bad that I couldn't. I would park my car very, very closely to my door at the office and run into the office, or I would wait till people were in the parking lot, and I would play it off, but I would have to walk in with them. And so what happened was this pissed me off. So I was so angry at myself. And I say, a lot smarter people would have found some help, but I just said, I'm going to solve this myself. So I started to read about people who had had experiences. And then that led me to interview a few people. And then that led me to be brave enough to share with them what happened to me. And then what happened was there was a point that I realized that I remembered all of the facts of what had happened to me as a little boy. But there was this one segment, and then you remember the film where I get kind of turned around. There are a lot of lights. There's a flash of, okay, that part I could not remember what happened to me.
Right.
And so the people that I was talking to, they suggested that I have some regression done. And I have to tell you, I was like, come on, get the hell out of here. Regret, get out of here. Really? And they said, no, no, there's this woman. Her name is Debs Shakti. And
She's in the film and she's
she,
great.
she's wonderful. And I tell you something right now, I consider her my guardian angel. I really do.
I'll tell you how she comes across in the film.
Yeah.
Like a very high being, but not in her ego at all.
No, no.
It's like you get the sense that, she's something special. She's done a lot of work and she's special, but she doesn't try to hit you over the head with it.
No, no.
She seems like an easy person to deal with, which is so nice. So non-diva.
Yeah. So, well, I'll tell you, yeah, exactly. And I'll say this about her. You've heard this term bandied about, Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
She really is that kind of person. It emanates from her. She's a total service to other person. And she's a really wonderful person. Well, I met her, and as I said, I'm not a small person. She's like a little elf. She's a little tiny person. And so I have no misogyny in me at all. I was raised with 5 women, everything else. But she starts to talk about regression, and I'm like, well, little lady, I don't think this is going to happen.
Okay.
And she looked up at me with this little like impish smile, and she said, well, we'll see. And so
yeah, it was funny. I noticed in the film she said she gets a kick out of people who say, "I can't be hypnotized."
yeah, she was making fun of me. She was making fun of me. And so, and you know what she did? I'll share this with you. She said, well, let's just try this and see if it'll work. And she took me to my favorite Christmas scene. And some things that were really beautiful. And I couldn't believe it, Renee. It was like I was standing there. I could taste the air. I could smell everything. I could see and touch everything. It blew my mind. And so she said, after a couple little sessions like that, she said, look, if you want to do this, we can do this. You're not afraid of this process anymore. And I said, are you sure that this can be done? And she said, look, John, I'm not going to do anything. You're going to do all the work. All I'm going to do is help you relax enough that you can walk down that hallway that you built and unlock that door that you locked and open up that filing cabinet. And all you're going to do is you're going to see inside and you're going to report. Well, I knew at that point I was starting to feel a little bit better about things. And I said, you know what? I'm certain I'm nobody special. I'm certain that a lot of people are suffering like me, who either have lied to themselves or lied to other people or didn't have anybody to talk to. And I said, we have to film this thing. And I said, I have an idea for a movie to help people. And originally, Des was completely against it. She said, look, this is not a carnival. We're not playing around. This is serious business. And I said, I don't consider that. I just so important. And so, she didn't want people around, so we had to put up remote cameras and all this other stuff, and people had to leave the building and rooms and all this other stuff. And the session was actually 6.5 hours.
Wow.
But what came out of it was things that have changed my life. I am a different person today, and I know things are different. And so that's why I call her a guardian angel. And then so the film was born from that idea
Oh my
about literally
goodness.
trying to help other people.
Oh, that's perfect. I think this might be a good time to run the trailer
Whatever
and
you
have a
say.
look at the film so that people can get an idea
Okay.
of a little sneak preview.
Yes, miss.
So let's have it, Bill.
Sure.
This is not communication, it's communion. Hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. That will change you. It changed me.
Lost in between two worlds and two dreams.
This was something that I kept buried for years. Strange things would happen. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore.
He came at me, and I fought for my life.
Ships started to pop up in the sky.
And there's this bizarre disk of light. And it was moving across the sky very fast.
The experience is often very terrifying.
If I felt fear, I would crawl under my covers, hoping that it would go away, whatever it was.
I know that we were put in that craft. I knew I was going to go to another planet.
And the being was right next to my face.
He saw two shadow beings. That's when I felt like I was going to die.
I had a real encounter with something. Even if I had to live with the fear, is to know the truth, is to know.
Well, I'm speechless. That's very powerful trailer, and an incredible film. So I hope everyone will see it. It's available on a lot of different platforms. I watched it on Amazon Prime myself. It's available for rent there, and on Apple TVs,
Apple TV, iTunes. It's all throughout North America right now. It'll be international next year, but if people have a VPN overseas, they can see it now.
Oh, that's right. Of course, they can.
Sure.
I think a lot of people have VPNs now.
I think so. Sure.
To watch things that they couldn't normally get in their zones.
Yes, miss.
Hopefully, a lot of people, particularly in Eastern Europe and Russia, do have VPNs. I hope. But anyhow, I don't know if I'm on the wrong track, but some of these experiences to me that were portrayed in the film, in some ways, have some similarity to like a near-death experience
Hmm.
in the profundity of it, in the life-changing aspect,
Hmm.
sometimes in the messaging.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
has anyone thought of that before? Or do you see what I'm mean? It's a
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think well, first of all, you're very intuitive. So, of course, you picked it right up. But Willie Strieber has written um,
we love
a lot.
Whitney.
Yeah, Mr. Strieber. I call him Mr. Strieber. He and
Oh,
I.
excuse me
I
for even interrupting, but
oh,
when
it's
I
okay.
first saw him
Yeah,
sitting there next to that portrait
his
of
wife.
his late wife Anne,
Yes.
it just my heart just
Yeah.
oh, and I thought how lovely that he did that. And then of course later in the film there's another picture of them together,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
thought, oh, he's still with her.
Well,
It's
100%. And in fact, if you look at the end credits, you'll see that I put a small ode to her that she is woven throughout the film.
oh,
Yes.
oh, that's so wonderful. Yeah,
I
she's a great lady.
yes, I don't want to say that Mr. Strieber and I are friends, but we're very friendly. We speak or write to each other every 6, 8 weeks, something like that. About the film, and I still insist on calling him Mr. Strieber because I have so much respect for him, and he makes fun of me. It's very funny. he's a he's a very funny guy. So he teases me about that, but I'm a very formal person. What can I tell you? So as far as the near death experience, he mentioned that he had seen, these visitors in the company of the dead, and he had wondered what their association was. In some of his writings, he's mentioned
I
that.
think I remembered that.
Yeah. He mentioned that, but I will say this to you. What I am discovering, let me take a step back. And
I think I've lost your audio.
let me
I think it may be getting some alien intervention. There's some very strange noise. I can't hear you.
I can hear you.
I can hear you now.
Very good.
Very odd
I
tone just came
I
through here.
I wanna tell you something. I am haunted by these things now.
I've heard that about people that have experiences, have a lot of trouble with electronics and
Yeah, I'm haunted.
watches and batteries and
Yes.
camera batteries for sure.
Sure.
We've had some strange experiences with loss of battery just instantly in strange places. So I can
Yeah.
totally relate to that. But anyway, do carry on.
Sure, sure. So what I wanna say is this. I I think a couple of things about this. Number 1, I think I think somehow these ET entities, these consciousnesses, somehow either use a tech or consciousness tool where they are penetrating that level of vibration and somehow pierce through that realm where the dead reside, their consciousnesses reside. And so somehow we get a glimpse of each one of those in that sort of thing. I don't know
Mm,
I don't know. That might be the case. But in addition to that, I think that the dead are a lot smarter than we are, right? You ever hear about these people say, "Well, I'll know that when I die. I'll get
right.
all the answers when I die." So, is it surprising that perhaps a more advanced civilization or more advanced consciousness would have the same kind of messages that our dead would give us? Is it surprising that maybe we need to look at ourselves a different way? But we need to grow up emotionally to match our tech, because we've kind of outrun our tech has kind of outrun our maturity as people, as entities, you know. And so is it really that incredible that the message is close to the same? Also, something else that's very important. This film is not about me. You know, I don't want anybody to get that kind of misconception. This is one of the reasons that all these good people are part of the film. You know, each one of their experiences. Some of them were similar, but many of them were very, very different. And it's important to understand that this is about us, meaning us as a race, as human beings, and where we find ourselves in the universe, in the cosmos. We live in a bubble. You know, this morning you woke up and you pressed a button and you got coffee, magic. And you pressed another button and you took a look at all your emails from around the world and you can communicate with anybody and you get in a nice air conditioned car and you go somewhere and you go to an air conditioned office. We live in this bubble where we control everything. And the truth is we are a speck on a speck on a speck on a speck. And this idea that we control everything has given us a certain sort of arrogance in that, you know, we're in control and things don't touch us. Meanwhile, there are things and powers and energy all around us that we just don't see. Here's an example. There are cosmic rays, X-rays, gamma rays. They happen all the time. So I don't care if you're an atheist. They exist. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean they don't exist.
Right.
Um, and so what I think is happening is that we as a species are becoming more and more sensitive to this information, this group of phenomena. You know, you wear glasses. You wear glasses, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So a hawk can see across a mountain, okay, and you can't. Well, is that supernatural? No, it's completely natural. It's just that their filters are a lot more acute than yours.
Mhm.
And this is what's happening. I think more and more people are somehow tuning themselves, fixing their filters, or being pushed, in my particular case, to a place where their filters are becoming less foggy and they're starting to see things clearly.
Do do you think that, I mean, because in the chaotic world that we live in, which I comment on often, and I don't mean to be a doomsdayer at all. I do, you know, in my daily life, try to keep, you know, a positive attitude, and certainly in my dealings with other people, I try my best to make their experience a comfortable one and a pleasant one. But we see what's going on out there. We're a very divided world, a divided nation. So, in some ways, it seems like we're evolving into possibly a higher level of consciousness, particularly with respect to our planet, each other, and so forth. On the other hand, it seems like we're going backwards. So, which is it?
I think it's both. See, here's the thing. We as people, our egos are the things that get into the way, right?
Yes.
And so what happens is we even try to control the labels that we put on things. Think about, are we going this way? Are we going this way? Well, two things can be true at the same time. And so what I would say to you is this, I get a kick out of this. You can go to Twitter right now and put on Happy Wednesday, and you get 1,000 people who scream at you and say, what do you have against Tuesday? And then
Yeah.
another 1,000 people who will say,
What's so good about it? What's so happy about
uh, and then another 1,000 people will say, you're a Thursday denier. You know, people are, right? People are more concerned with being right instead of being correct. This experience, and this is what's happening. This experience silences, crushes our ego because it literally takes us completely out of control. And because think about it this way, if you know everything, you can't learn anything. If you're screaming all the time, you can't hear anybody else,
Yeah.
right? This is the world that you're talking about. Okay. At the same time, there are individuals that have the propensity or the proclivity to hear, to listen, to be more sensitive, to be at least open in the ideas that we're discussing tonight. And they hear that call. I have a dear friend who's probably listening tonight, Francis, and God bless you. I know you're out there somewhere, and this is a person who has needed kind of a validation that, look, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. There are many, many people out there who have been silenced, have been shouted down, have been called names. But you know what? The paradigm is changing. To speak to your point, watch this. Please consider. A couple of years ago, on the front of every newspaper in the world, the Tic Tac and all this other stuff, right? And
Yeah.
people kept talking about, well, this is big disclosure and stuff. But even in the disclosure, it's kind of a soft disclosure or false
Yeah.
disclosure because the government's still kind of lying. They said, well, we lied, but we're not really lying this time, but we lied about that. It's all this crap. And so I say, look, guys, if you got bitten by a shark, would you blame the shark? No, the shark bites people. The government does two things. It controls information, controls where you go, where you live, how fast you drive, all this other stuff, and it taxes because it needs money to control. This is the only thing it does. So don't be surprised. But watch this. This is really interesting, Renee. It's about the human condition, and this is why I say this film is about people. Watch. There are basically three buckets of people when it comes to this kind of subject. You got what I call the street watchers or the shoe watchers. They look at their feet and they say, everybody who thinks about this stuff is crazy and you wear tinfoil hats and you're idiots and blah, 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 blah. Then you've got those folks in the smoking jackets with the pipes around the campfire. Well, I think mathematically in the universe there probably is but what does it have to do with me? And then you have people like you and I who go, wait a minute, what are the possibilities here? How does this affect us? What does this change in my paradigm? Everything. Okay, so watch this. This stuff comes out in the news and it changes everything. And you remember, I mean, you and I are close in age, so you remember that old saying, the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
So watch this. Watch this. So this comes out and the shoe watchers say, wait a minute. You mean to tell me the governments of the world are doing this and they're thinking about this and they're paying what are they looking at? And for the first time in their lives, they look up. Now watch. They look up with expectation. Not just looking up. They look up with expectation because other people have seen it. Other people they consider authorities.
Right.
And they look up with more than that, even a duty to report, because now it could be the Russians or it could be, the Chinese or whatever. So they look up with an entirely different view. The tinfoil hats are gone. Now look at the other folks with the big pipes and stuff like this. Oh, well, what does this have to do with me? What? They're using my tax money to do what? And they look up for the first time in their lives with the same sort of expectation and duty. And then the rest of us are sitting at the end of the tunnel going, well, welcome to the party, guys. This is a slow and subtle change in the paradigm. I'll tell you a stupid story about myself. I'm a very anal retentive guy. I've been working at the same office for 13 years. Okay? I drive the same way every day. I just stop in front of this shopping center once. And this is a couple of years ago. And I see this billboard, and I'm talking to somebody on the phone, and I said, you know what, this billboard is stupid. This is stupid advertising. I hate, who the hell put this thing up here? Person on the phone tells me, that's been there for 8 years. I said, you are kidding me. You are the most anal retentive person you know has missed this for 8 years. And you know what now, Renee? I can't help but see it every single time I
Every
drive
single time.
and in my dreams, right? So what I'm saying is that we have given those naysayers permission
Mm.
and they are taking it.
Permission to not feel silly is what it is, basically.
Yeah.
It is,
So both those things are true.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, government officials, of which you showed some in the film, and they'll go so far, but that's as far as they'll go,
Yeah.
But they wouldn't even go that far in the past, so at
Oh,
least it's inched forward a little bit.
sure,
And
sure,
I think you're right. I think it does give permission to think about it, research, and talk about it without feeling like a complete idiot or feeling like other people are going to make fun of them or make them feel stupid.
sure, sure.
But yeah, it's really strange. I was involved in the alien abduction research years ago. I don't know if you've heard of the organization called CERO, Close Encounter Research Organization. It actually still exists today. It was formed out here on the West Coast, and I was one of the founders.
Hmm.
And I stayed along for a few years and left for whatever reason, number of reasons, moving along. But I did get a chance to talk to a lot of people who had experiences. Now, I do have to say, there were some times when I felt that perhaps people were having other issues, having
Yeah,
mental health issues, which of course can be possible.
100%.
And also, both things can be true at the same
Sure.
time. Someone could be having mental health issues and having experiences.
Mhm.
But I found that the way kind of that I felt the most authentic stories were people who handled it sort of like you are, and in a very sort of self-examination way, uh, a very non-egotistical way. And the ones that I felt probably were not quite on the up and up were people that claimed to have some kind of authority from the Federation, to lead the planet, this, that, and the other, when it just doesn't strike me as plausible that something like that would be real. But
Sure.
something that would, affect our consciousness, in a large way. So it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us
Us. It's about
and our
us.
planet and everything.
Yeah,
That sort of rings
yeah.
a lot more true to me. But what I want to ask you is, okay, you've had this experience starting at the time you were a little boy. Who knows how you would have turned out without this experience? You might have been a different person. You
Might
know
have
what I
been
mean?
a nicer guy
You might have been like your
earlier.
dad and
A
been very
nicer guy earlier.
close-minded. Your dad might have closed you off with his closed-mindedness,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
who knows? But people that are these experiences happening to people that are really on a negative trip right now, the people that are angry, the people that are violent, against each other, against,
Sure.
the planet, are they having these experience and having some sort of a life-changing experience?
Sure.
Or is it
Actually,
only people that are already kind of, on the planet's side?
no, you know what? Man, there's so much to unpack there. Well, you've done this before, haven't you? Um, I have a lot to say about this if you'll let me. The first thing is, 500 years ago, people used to think that illness was caused by, you know, evil spirits. Along comes the microscope, right? And so they see cells and they see bacteria and they see viruses. So here's a question. Do the viruses and the bacteria and all that stuff just spontaneously create themselves because the microscope was around? No, they were always there, right? It's always there. Our tech just finally caught up.
Mhm.
Okay, so saying that, bacteria and cells and everything, they're pervasive. They're everywhere. It is my opinion that it's not it's not the experiences that are becoming more pervasive and only selective people.
Mm.
They're everywhere. That sign that I passed was there for 8 years. The bad people saw it, the good people saw it, the idiots saw it, the crazy people saw it, the people with mental ill saw it. Everybody saw it. Everybody with problems, with no problems, born again Christians and total atheists, everybody saw it. Okay? Who registered? That's another question. That's another question. Here's something else that I found. At the end of the film, I posit this. I say, you know what is it about these shiny lights in the sky that makes me want to be a better person? And maybe I can sum it up this way. I give you a real life example. you know, uh, uh, I'm in my late 50s, and I hear a lot of things
Well, thank
today.
you for saying we were close to the same age.
Oh, I thought I was gonna actually, Renee, I was going to call you little sister from now on. so, so you know, I hear people a lot on the news and on social media. They talk about my truth, my truth, my truth. And I smile at that because, back in the 60s and the 70s, if you would have said that, somebody would have said, well, that's an opinion that nobody else shares. That's why you own it. Um, but today it means something totally different. And people are very, very sensitive about that. And I have to tell you, I'm being honest with you. I'm not proud, just saying the truth, right? I used to poo poo those folks.
Mhm.
You're just so full of yourself, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I've changed. And let me share with you how I've changed. And maybe you can look back at some of those experiences that you've had with those folks and maybe look at it through this lens.
Mm.
There's this old analogy where you take the 3 smartest people on the planet, you throw them in a black room and you say, hey, what's in there? And somebody says, well, it's a spear. Somebody says, no, what are you crazy? It's a whip. Somebody says, are you guys nuts? This is a boulder. And they turn on the light and it's an elephant. Right?
Each one has a different part.
Yeah. But like I said, the devil's in the details. So
Yeah.
watch this. Watch this. We've already established that they're the smartest people on the planet. So these people aren't lying. These people are giving us their honest observations. They're giving it thought. They're wrapping their arms around as much of the experience as they possibly physically and mentally can. And not only that, they're digesting as much as they can and trying to find the words to convey what they're experiencing. And each one of them would plant their flag and fight you to the death to say, no, this was a spear, and no, this was a tail, and no, this, because they were telling their truth. But there was no obfuscation. There was no subterfuge, duplicity. They truly, truly, with all of their heart, processed that information that way.
Yeah.
So the way I've kind of changed is I realize that we're all so close, too close to the elephant. And I pull myself back and I can see how people could get so mired in the minutia to believe that they might be the only point of reference. I have a soft spot in me. I mean, I'm afraid of those people, but I have a soft spot in my heart for these folks because I think to myself, are you so myopic? Are you so close to this that you might not see the whole picture? And by the way, I've said this is my 3rd time. That's why my film is for us, because it's not my experience that you should want to know about. It's mine and yours and yours and yours and yours. And eventually, together as a race, as a people, we can put this together. This thing is huge. I try to use analogies to take difficult ideas and put them into compartmentalization so people can understand them. And so you saw one of those things in the film where we're talking about Elon Musk and he sends the ship to Mars, right? And out of the hatch comes somebody from Kenya and somebody from Sweden and somebody from Germany and Asia. Okay, and the little Martian guy says, "Hey, who's the Earthling?"
Yeah.
Well, they all look different. They all sound different. They all, speak different. They all have different agendas. And that's one ship from one planet. Look at the universe. If we
Yeah.
can accept the fact that there is life beside outside of us, we cannot say, yes, but they're only from Arcturus. They're only from Venus. Come on, come on. You took a half a step forward and two steps back. If there's life, then there's life. And you have to allow for that. This is a big picture, and we as a people have got to quiet ourselves, quiet our egos, and absorb the information. Only through that and collective contemplation are we going to get to any sort of an answer here.
Wow. That's a pretty big order.
It is. It is. It is. I think that's what's going to happen, though, and this is what in my regression I was told is that there are going to be a series of events within my lifetime that beyond all peradventure, there will not be any doubt. Like right now, people saw that stuff on the covers of newspapers and news, and they're like, well, that could be Russian or they could be Chinese, right? Well, if that's so, why didn't the Russians just crush Ukraine? If they had that
Yeah.
tag, why didn't they do that? If China had it, why wouldn't they just take over America or take Taiwan? I don't know, but okay. So there's just still this doubt and these okay, but there's going to be a point here when there's not going to be any doubt. And as I say in the film, it's going to be kind of the best of times and the worst of times. There are going to be people who lose their damn mind. There are going to be people who lose their soul, lose their faith, lose whatever because they held it way too tightly. They didn't understand that it was part of the big picture. It wasn't the picture, right?
Right.
And so you're going to have that. You're also going to have people who find tremendous joy in this. It's going to be wonderful and terrible and scary and exhilarating and all of that together.
Yeah.
And what it's going to require, though, are these people who have had experiences and recognized them and kind of dealt with them. Because everybody who called you a liar or a fool, they're going to be the same people who turn to you and say, I was wrong. What do I do?
Yeah.
And
Tell me more. Give me
they're
more.
going to need you. And by the way, that right there is your call to arms. Okay, you say you're enlightened. You say that you have elevated your resonance and your vibration. When the people need you, will you give service to others? Will you? We'll see.
When I was a child, and for many years, I had this dream that I called it my end of the world dream.
Oh my.
And what it was I was outside, standing outside and looking up at the sky and at night, and there were just armada of spacecraft, different kinds, different formations, some of them projecting images, like friendly images, like Bugs Bunny or something, a cartoon, all kinds of things. And it wasn't the end of the world, but it was the end of the world as we know it.
Sure.
That's why it was my end of the world dream. And when I was working with the Zero group, we had, questions that we would ask people. And I asked everyone, one of the questions I would ask, and sort of from my own selfish reasons, was, do you have an end of the world dream? And you wouldn't believe how many people had exactly the same dream. I mean, they might be standing out by the ocean and watching them come in, but it was always the UFOs, the spacecraft coming through.
Yeah.
And it was really wild.
Yeah.
To find out that so many other people
Yeah.
were having that same dream. So I wonder, if that was, prescient, or was it, is that what you feel they're talking about a big event?
It will be a series of events. Listen, everybody is freaked out and afraid. And this is why my film takes people from a place of ignorance and fear, which is where I lived for all my life, to some sort of understanding and some sort of peace. Th- this is a frightening thing because what it does is it crushes the ego. See, we're no longer in control. We like to live in the States because we think, oh, well, we got all the bombs. Okay, well, what if you found out that somebody on the moon had all the bombs? Now all of a sudden you don't feel so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so if all of a sudden the sky is filled with that imagery, people would lose their minds. Some people would not, all right, but there'd be a lot of people who would lose their minds. Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
These, I'm not one of these people that say everybody who's achieved interstellar travel is an enlightened being. Look, we're moving satellites and probes to all the planets in our solar system, and we've got a long way to go as people, right? So, are there bad guys out there? Sure. Are there good guys out there? Sure. Okay. But if they wanted to take us out, they obviously have the technology to do it. Okay. They haven't done it. There's
Right.
a reason. There's a reason. Okay. And I have to believe that even in our fallen state as a race of people, we still have a sense of right and wrong. We still have a sense that life is precious. We still have a sense that, when the fire starts in California where you live, one of the first things people do, they go in to look for survivors. They're not saying, hey, listen, save that A-frame,
Yeah.
right? They're saying, save Renee, right?
Yeah. Save the
Because we
person.
understand that
Yeah.
life, that consciousness is precious. It's important. And so what what I think will be our true saving grace is realizing that we don't have to be in control to participate. You know, I think about this all the time. We send probes all throughout the solar system, right? And you know what we do? We take pictures, we take measurements, we take
Hmm.
samples. And if we found a sentient type of being or some sort of animal, we'd come down in black helicopters, we'd shoot it with a dart, and we'd tag it on the ear, and we'd track its migration, wouldn't we? Of course we would. But
It
see, the
got
reason that
worse.
we can't believe that that would ever happen to us is because, see, we're the top of the food chain.
Mm.
We're not. And this is why we have such a hard time.
Yeah.
I think what's happening is that the attitude about us being supreme, the center of the universe, which Copernicus proved wrong a long time ago, is important for us to embrace. Because the moment that we realize that we're part of the cosmos, that allows us to understand our place in the cosmos, which also allows us to learn and grow. If you crawled on your belly all your life and never looked up, and I told you about these gigantic castles of mist and water in the sky, and you said, that's bunk and crap, and you don't know what you're talking about, it in no way would negate the existence of clouds. They would
Right.
still be there regardless if you looked at them or not. And it's time for us to roll over from our bellies and look up and look in and look around and look to each other. This sounds like some woo-woo hippie It's not. It's not. I mean, on the very purest level, that, think of it this way, Renee. There are very religious people in the world, right? And there are people who are agnostic, and there are people who are very, very anti-religion. They're totally atheist, right? So no matter what, though, no matter what, think about this. We all share the same common origin. If you're a devout Christian, you believe that we have a creator God, right? If you're an atheist, we're a product of the Big Bang, right? But even in the Big Bang, when those stars explode, we are all part of the same stardust. You, me, Black, white, Asian, Greek, German, Italian, French, everybody. And by the way, so are they, and so are they, and so are they. This commonality is something that we have to understand. We are so ensconced in this 3D, okay, I'm born here and I die when I'm 70 and that's it. And this is why I can act like an ass my entire life because it's just about me getting for me, right?
Yeah.
But if you realize you're part of something much larger, and isn't that, by the way, isn't that really the message of almost every religion on the planet? That you're part of something larger. This is why, the golden rule, treat others as you would have to. I mean, even in quantum physics, they were talking about reciprocal forces. I mean, it's science. People say, I follow the science. Okay, follow the freaking science, man. Right? This is not woo-woo, hippies. This is true. And so this is, I know it sounds crazy. I had this terrible experience when I was a little boy, and it traumatized me. But you know what the trauma really was? It wasn't the event. Were the humans around it.
Yes. The
Think
reaction
about
that
that.
you got,
Isn't that a
especially
crazy
from your
thing?
parents.
Isn't that a crazy thing to even consider?
Yeah. It wasn't the crazy alien monsters.
Yeah.
It was the way
Yeah.
that you
I mean, I was scared to
loved
death as a
reacted.
7-year-old boy, sure. But let me ask you something. Is that elk scared to death as it gets the dart and falls down? Doesn't have any idea that those doctors really care about it, want to make sure it doesn't have, malaria or whatever.
Yep.
Has no idea.
Oh my goodness. We're almost completely out of time, John. I
Really?
want to thank you so much for coming on. You've got to come back. Also, I want everyone to stay tuned to this show and to KGRA because we may have some big news. We're going to keep you updated on John's activities and the activities of the film. And as Bill hinted in the chat room, we might have some big news coming up about that. So keep your eyes on KGRA. And
Thank you
John,
very
thank you
much.
so much. I loved
Thank
your
you.
film, and I recommend it to anybody who's experiencing or just interested
Curious.
in the
Yeah.
phenomenon. It's a good film, no matter what.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Hope you'll join
God
us
bless.
next week for Night Vision. Bye.
Good night.